All right. Welcome everyone who is coming into our YouTube live session about school year abroad. Before we get started and do our introductions, I will just start by saying that we are a high school study abroad program, gap year options. And so if you and your family are interested for your high schooler, you are in the right place. And we are, again, school year abroad SYA. So thank you again for those of you who are joining in on this Thursday evening to our virtual information session. We are going to get started very shortly here. I'm really excited for the session. We are joined by two fantastic alums from School Year Abroad who will introduce themselves in a brief moment here. Just an overview of the program tonight. We will have a general admissions presentation about School Year Abroad for our high school students. And then we will bring out our alums for a Q&A panel. We've received your questions in our database and we've added them to our agenda. So if you submitted a question in advance, we will get to you. We will do our best to get to you in our hour together. And you can also use the chat feature on the sidebar to submit questions as we are presenting. So let's get started. Welcome again, everybody. My name is Maggie Bland, and I work in admissions at School Year Abroad, or SYA as we call it. And we are so honored to have two of our awesome alums with us who just got back last spring from our campuses in Italy and France, and they're very excited to share about their experiences. So I will start with Mia, and then we'll go to Adriana, and you'll just do a brief introduction, and then we will get going on the presentation. Mia, go ahead.
Ciao e buonasera, sono Mia, sono da New Jersey, vado a North Academy e ho 16 anni, ma quindi ho avuto 15 anni, sì, 15 anni, mi piace a gioco calcio e ho studiato a Viterbo, una piccola ma bella città cerca di Roma. Sì.
And then in English?
Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Mia Heinold, and I go to Newark Academy. I live in New Jersey. I am 16 years old, but when I studied there, I was 15. I love playing soccer, and I'm excited to talk to you.
Awesome. Adriana, go ahead.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Adriana, j'ai 17 ans, je vis à Miami, en Floride. L'année dernière, j'étais une junior avec SYA en France, à Rennes. C'est une ville dans la région de la Bretagne. Je vais à l'école Ransom Everglades et maintenant, je fais des sollicitudes pour l'université et oui, j'aime danser et chanter. So in English, what I just said is, hi, my name is Adriana. I'm 17. I'm from Miami, Florida. When I was in France this past year, I was a junior studying abroad in Rennes, France. So Rennes is the capital of the Bretagne. And I go to Ransom Everglades. I'm currently doing college applications, and I love to dance.
Perfect. So I think we just have a quick video just talking about a little bit more about SYA and hearing some other students introduce it as well.
Every experience you have here will be an adventure. The risks, the rewards, they're all included.
This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it. That makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
You really feel the gravity of the things that you learn out of your textbook rather than just hearing about them and memorizing some flashcards. I think it's the difference between memorization and understanding.
It's not just schoolwork, it's actual practical experience that you can't really get anywhere else.
What SYA does best is make students comfortable being uncomfortable. You really start to embrace the idea of being uncomfortable.
I don't think any other program could really give you this experience. And they're willing to throw their students into these situations, trust that we'll be okay. And in the end, we are okay, and I think that we take so much away from it just because SY is willing to give us that trust and freedom.
So the capstone project is the culminating end-of-year project for all SYA students. It's very much grounded in the fact that we are in Spain, and the goal of the project is to take best advantage of the resources that are around us.
I think that I've been able to get through the surface level of my experience here, not only with the land, but with the people. And I think that the longer that you're here, the deeper beneath the surface you can really get.
My host family, they are the cutest people I have ever met. I can leave Italy saying, I'm part Italian now. I am part of their family and they love me and I love them. The relationships that I've created with them, that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I know it can be sort of scary thinking, oh, 9 months in a foreign country. It flies by so fast and it's so fun. It's an experience that I feel so fortunate to have been involved in. It's not something that a lot of people get to do, so if you have the opportunity, please do it.
For anyone who's on the fence about going to SYA or even applying, the fact that you're even thinking about it probably means that you're somebody who should be here.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Sarah, and awesome introductions, Mia and Adriana. I am going to go ahead and share my screen for our admissions presentation. So just hold on one second. All right. So again, welcome everyone, School Year Abroad or SYA virtual information session. So as we all know, the past few years were defined by home and for the most part, staying at home. But at SYA, we hope that you'll consider making the world your home through studying with us for either a semester or a year. With campuses in France, Italy, and Spain, we hope that SYA can turn your learning journey into one that is focused on hands-on and real-world contexts and turn your textbooks into contexts in the process. So all of our students at SYA are paired with a personally matched host family as they immerse themselves in the local culture and feel truly at home while living abroad. SYA students are part of a small student body composed of sophomores, juniors, and seniors from high schools all across the United States. I do like to mention here that our France and Spain programs do have a level 2 or 2-year high school language requirement to apply. And our Italy program just requires that you've taken 2 years of a foreign language, but it doesn't have to be Italian. And I do also like to mention that for those of you who may feel intimidated by the language component to our program, we do see that a wide variety of language learners excel at our program due to the fact that it is fully immersive. Our hands-on and fieldwork-based curriculum will challenge you to think creatively and critically, all while staying on track with your graduation requirements. You'll venture outside the classroom and learn from the culture around you and take your education into your own hands. You will be amazed at the self-reliance and confidence you can build as you travel throughout your host country and design your own final capstone project. Each of our SYA students participates in 2 activities locally. So this can be a wide range from playing an instrument to playing a sport to doing community service. At each step of their adventure abroad, students are guided by dedicated local and American faculty members who serve as their teachers, advisors, and college counselors. So in addition to having college counselors on each campus and being SAT testing sites, it's really important that SYA students really find their voices overseas. In presenting themselves to colleges and universities as SYA graduates, they are saying that they have a distinctive story to tell, and they're demonstrating that they have the grit and ambition to do what it takes to live in a different country and learn a new language. Just take a look at our colleges and universities most frequently attended by SYA graduates in the past 5 years. So at SYA, we also believe that financial need should not discourage students from attending and applying to our program. That's why about half of our students receive financial aid, and we have over $2.5 million of financial aid available. So in conclusion, it has been a long past few years, and we are so happy that we are fully in person on our campuses and that our applications are now live. So we really hope that you take this opportunity to push yourself outside your comfort zone, gain independence, and make one of these incredible places your home in Rennes, France, Viterbo, Italy, or Saragossa, Spain. So you don't need to scan this QR code, but I do like to end here with our social media. So our TikTok, our Instagram are really coming alive with content from our campus reporters who are on campus right now. So please follow us on social media. So I will stop sharing and join us back here with our two alums again. So welcome back, Mia and Adriana. We are going to get right ahead and start with our Q&A with both of you. So let's start us off, Mia, with your favorite class at SYA Italy.
Okay, so I think that I loved all my classes, but I would say that my favorite class would be my Italian experiential class. So I've never had a class like this. It was only 7-8 kids in a class with one professor. And we basically just spent time coming with questions, things that we were confused about like the Italian and common misconceptions. And it was just like a great space to learn from, and we all fed off each other's energy. We commonly had classes like in cafes. Like, it was just so much fun. And as part of our classwork, we would have to interview people. We would have to ask people about politics, or go and ask a train conductor on how we could buy a ticket, or it was just ways that we could practice what we were learning at home and in school, and really just go out and do it, which I think is honestly unlike any immersive factor that I've had in any of my past schools.
Totally, Mia, and thank you for commenting on the experiential language. All of our students take an experiential language class and a little bit more of a grammar-based language class, and we often hear that that's students' favorites just because it gets you outside the classroom. You're doing really practical, tangible things with the language and doing the essentials of buying that train ticket, ordering at a cafe, and the things that you really need to get by. So that starts when our students start and goes the entire time of their stay. Adriana, if you could talk about your favorite class too.
Yes. So my favorite class was art history. So it was an elective, and so I took it in French. And it was my favorite class because we studied architectural styles of like so many time periods up to like the current time period. And the most immersive was when we studied the Mont Saint-Michel, which is an abbey in like surrounded by water in Normandy. So we studied the characteristics, and then we actually got to go see it as a field work activity. And so we knew what we were looking at. Like, we knew the history behind it, what the rims were called, like the arches. Like, it was very like, you get to see what you learn like literally come to life. And I think that's a very essential part of SYA.
Awesome answer, Adriana. I hear that also from SYA students, and in my experience studying abroad in high school as well, it was the first time that I really studied things in the classroom and then gone that day to see it in real life, and making those connections just have stayed with me forever. It's a really personal way to learn, and it sticks with you for a really long time. And it's an incredible experience to be able to see what you were just studying in your textbooks that morning. I did want to also mention that Adriana talked about our electives, and those are 2 other courses. So it's 2 language courses. Math and English are taught in English at all campuses. And then there are 2 electives that students get to choose. And those can range from environmental science to art history to cinema to politics. And those are taught in the target language at the start of the program in France, and more Italian is incorporated into those courses throughout the year. So those are the 6 courses that students take. I know a couple of you had questions about that. In addition to full days of classes, our students do activities, some with SYA and most with the local community, local students. So if both of you could share a little bit about what you did for your activities, that'd be great. Let's start with Mia and then Adriana.
Okay, so I think actually my favorite part of going to Italy was how my host family was always super into soccer, which is something that I love and I love to play. And so when I got to Viterbo, I really wanted to join a soccer team. So we have an activity service wellness teacher at the school, and they kind of coordinate ways that we can get involved outside the classroom. So I talked to him, and we found actually a soccer team that I could join. So they didn't have any girls soccer teams in the area, so I ended up joining a boys soccer team. And we practiced 3 times a week. I used to take the bus to practice, and then I used to go with my friends, and we used to go to all of their games. It was just so much fun and such a nice way for me to meet people my age. And it was a place that I was able to be comfortable, but then also rapidly pick up and practice my language, which I think that I was able to then push through and learn really fastly.
Totally. We hear that from a lot of SYAers as well, that the activities with local students is where they pick up a lot of those kind of colloquial terms and phrases that you wouldn't necessarily learn in the classroom, but that are essential to being fluent in the language. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Adriana, what about you?
So I dance in the US, so I definitely wanted to do that while I was abroad. And I joined a dance team. So we would meet, it was like once a week in the evenings, and it was really cool because it was like not only women my age, it was kind of like all over the place. So it was fun to like incorporate like everyone. And the place I did it at was like kind of recreational, but I know a few students went to the conservatoire, and they could keep on doing dance if they did it like not professionally, but like advanced in the US. They could definitely continue doing that abroad.
Totally. And one of our goals at SYA is to make sure that students can continue their interests at SYA that they have at their home school. So providing that consistency, we hear from a lot of students. I'll be the voice of Spain here because I've been to the Spain campus, that a lot of students who play volleyball or row crew or play an instrument do end up saying that, again, it was one of those really kind of influential ways that they became part of the community in a way that was comfortable for them. So in a way that made sense to them through dance or through a sport that you already felt a little bit more comfortable with. So that is awesome. Let's go on to everybody's favorite topic here, food in your host country. So Adriana, can you talk a little bit about your favorite foods in France?
Of course. So French food is great. It's funny because the idea I had coming into France about the food was different once you're in the host family. It's kind of like normal what you would eat here, like chicken, soup. And my favorite though, and which is kind of typical, are the galettes and the crepes. So in where Rennes is, in the Brittany region of France, that's like the original place of crepes and galettes. So galettes are salty crepes. So you would have a galette complète with an egg, ham, cheese, and you could literally, everywhere you would go would be like a galeterie or crêperie. And so it would be all over. You could get whatever you want, like in it, and it was always super filling. And yeah, it's like a sandwich, but like a French style fried sandwich. It was great.
My mouth is watering hearing you talk about that. I think that you mentioned kind of where Rennes is, and that brings up a great point that all of our cities are chosen really specifically and intentionally for our students. So they're all within a reasonable distance to Rome, Paris, Madrid, and Barcelona, but they're small enough that students can really get to know the city and know the corners, know their way around, and use public transit that's extremely safe in our city. So they are chosen very intentionally so that students can feel a real grasp of where they are and not be too overwhelmed in a major city, but have access to it. So let's move on to some of our school trips. We'll talk a little bit more about travel in a bit, but Mia, if you could talk about one of your favorite trips that you took with SYA Italy.
So we did a lot of trips, from day trips and overnight trips, school trips, and independent travel trips. But I think that my favorite was going to Sicily. We went to Sicily for 10 days with the school during spring break. And we went to cities like Palermo, Taormina, Syracuse. Yeah. And it was just a nice way. So we had to take a plane to get there, a couple trains. So it was definitely a hike to get there. But once we got there, I realized that like how kind of different life was down south, and how nice it was to be able to say that I also experienced it. So like learning different dialect or learning different types of food or talking to different locals and trying to understand like the different dialects that they spoke, because in Italy it's like different, it's a bunch of different languages kind of, and we just learned like the traditional or like the one that's kind of closest to Rome. So it was nice to learn and kind of experience that as well. But then my favorite part of the trip was on the last day of the trip, we got to do like an independent travel day with some of our classmates. And we went to actually a really tiny beach town. And it was just a nice way to kind of all like bond together as a class. We went swimming, we had like a nice lunch together. It was just an amazing 10 days.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. I think we do get a lot of questions about travel, and I do want to mention that SYA does host a fair amount of school-wide travel, either where students split up into smaller groups with teachers and travel, especially at the start of the program, or as a whole group. Once students are at SYA for a number of months, are in good academic standing, and get their full agendas approved by the school and their family back in the States or wherever you may be, they are able to travel throughout their country with 2 to 3 buddies from school year abroad. So it's only once they have kind of their grounding and can really effectively communicate in the language that they're allowed to do that. Again, with a say from our campuses, our administration, and families and guardians back home. So we'll go into a little bit more of our stories from your experiences at SYA. We are going to talk a little bit about our host families. So Adriana, could you tell me about one of your favorite memories or just a little bit about your host family?
Sure. So my host family, it was, I had a mom and a dad, and then they had 4 kids, but only 2 of them lived at home. So 2 of them were university students. So they were in other cities in France. But the ones back home, there were 13. It was a 13-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. And I have a 13-year-old brother at home. So that felt very familiar to me. And I just loved spending time with them. The little girl was always super hyper to be with me. Probably one of my favorite memories is when we went to a town in Normandy to visit their grandparents, and their grandparents were also super welcoming. I remember the grandpa always wanted to speak to me in English to practice his English, and they would all be like, no, she has to speak in French. So it was so great. I really felt welcomed by them and part of a family. And you also learn so much just by like family dynamics, or listening is like a key component into like how in family lifestyle.
Awesome. And I'll talk a little bit to our viewers about that process. So all of our students fill out a lengthy survey before they attend our programs with their preferences in a host family. So would they like siblings? Would they like older parents? Would they like have any dietary restrictions, anything like that? And our families do the same. They also do extensive background checks and home visits. And all of our campuses have a host family coordinator who remains very active on campus in terms of checking in with the student to see how their host family is going, and continuing to make sure that bond is growing in a way that feels comfortable to the student and the family. So it is something that we're really proud of at SYA. When I was at our campus in Spain, I stayed with a family with 2 younger sisters, and I only have older siblings. So I was so intrigued by the dynamic of having younger siblings. And I hear that a lot from applicants too. Like, I have older siblings, I really want an experience with younger, or the opposite, or I don't want siblings in my house, I have too many at home. So it's really a great experience to get to incorporate yourself into a new family dynamic and have them do the same. And all of our families say that they really, and they agree to take on a child just like their own. So if the host family goes to visit the grandparents, so does the host child. So they're along for the ride and does kind of what the family does, which is really special. So fieldwork, we talked a little bit about, but 1 day a week on our campuses, our students get outside of the classroom and do kind of a field trip day related to one of their classes, if not more than one of their classes. So Mia, if you could talk about one of your favorite fieldwork activities, that'd be great.
So we did a lot of fieldwork activities, but I think that my favorite ones were when we went to Rome. So we lived about an hour by car to Rome, but about an hour and a half, 2 hour train ride. So really early on into the year, so I was a semester student, so January, and I was just getting to know some of the full year students, and we had went into Rome for the day with the purpose of, for the spring semester students like it was to successfully travel, get to Rome, check in with our teachers, and talk to conductors, talk to people on the train, go and then ask locals about like the government systems and politics and everything like that. So I was actually really nervous to just walk up to complete strangers. I was embarrassed I thought that I didn't know enough Italian to converse with them. But I ended up going and learning that it wasn't about how much I knew, it was about how much effort I put into it and how much I tried. And even if I messed up, Italians in general were just so welcoming, and it just made me realize that the whole community as a whole kind of was just there for you. And even if you made a mistake, fieldwork opportunities and days like these were the days that I had the most fun, because I was able to learn and then make mistakes, but then also circle back and be like, but this is all part of growing and becoming fluent and having fun.
Totally. I think for the parents who are watching and the students who have been studying languages, it definitely is essential to be making mistakes frequently to be learning a language successfully, and putting yourself out there and having the confidence to do it, or even getting a little nudge from SYA faculty members who knew that you could, is just such an important part of learning language. And having that humility and laughing a lot and miming a lot, and all of those things are really important parts of learning a language, and in showing other people who speak the language that you really care to get your point across, and that you're willing to give it your best shot. So that's a great anecdote. So a typical day at school, we get this question a lot about differences between the school day at SYA and in the United States. So if Adriana, you could talk a little bit about a day in your school life at France.
Of course. So my school life in France, I was really lucky to live close to campus, but there are people live throughout Rennes, and that's why we start classes at 9. So if people need to take the bus, which is always handy, it always comes around, or needed to get there, some people rode their bikes. So we started classes at 9, and we would have 45-minute classes, 45 to 50 minutes. And for lunch, we would go out to local French high school. So our school doesn't have a cafeteria, so we would walk. It was a 3-minute walk to Jean Massé, which was the local French high school, and we would eat lunch there, put in our code, and they have all sorts of assortments. And then we'd go back to school, do our classes, and then we were done for the day. Usually, if we had work, we would go home. If not, I remember in the beginning, since we were all getting to know each other, we would go down to the city. We either walk. Everything is super walkable in Rennes. Grab something to eat, go to a cafe, do your homework. And then once we started getting to the year, it was so much easier to leave. You feel more comfortable. I mean, leaving, going to a cafe and doing your work, or meeting up at Le Parc sous Abord, which is a beautiful park in Rennes. So yeah, you were definitely, school didn't take up your whole day. You definitely have time to explore on your own.
Definitely. And I think SYA teachers are aware that it's exhausting to learn a new language, and we want you to have time to really sit at your host family's dinner table and absorb it and experience it, and not have to leave right away to do all of your homework. So, we have questions about the rigor of our classes, and they are all honors level and some AP level courses. And our teachers are aware that our students are all really fully immersing themselves in a new language, and that takes a lot of time and energy. So giving our students space to be able to do that and do that with ease is definitely a priority at SYA. So our final question for both of you, and then we'll get into some of our questions submitted by the audience, is kind of what made you apply to SYA, or what might you tell the prospective students who are listening to this and who are undecided if they're going to apply? Either of those things, what, you wish you could have known, or what made you end up applying to SYA. Mia, we'll start with you.
So I think I first heard about SYA from people that kind of came to my school, worked for SYA, and talked about the program. And I also didn't directly know any alums, but at my school there were some alums that graduated. So I had talked with my teachers, and when I had realized that at least in college, that I really wanted to study abroad and that this opportunity was kind of in front of me, I really just wanted to take advantage of it. I think that at first I was a little bit on the fence because I was like, oh gosh, I don't really want to miss anything that happens at home. I don't want to, my family and my friends and my teams and my school. And what about, I went second semester sophomore year. What about, does that delay like my college searches or anything like that? And when I had talked with my parents and we had figured out that it made sense, I just became super excited. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about what's happening here. This semester is going to be the same as last semester. Yeah, I'm going to miss out on some things, but I'm going to be getting a whole new semester, a whole new year of experience and memories and meeting new people and everything like that. So I think that going into it, I was a little bit nervous, but I think that I was so excited to meet new people and meet people that were excited to meet me. Almost, I knew that my host family, it was my host family's first time hosting a student, and because I had two brothers, I would be the first girl in their house. So it would be something that would take some getting used to, but it was something that I was undoubtedly excited for. Yeah, I think that then coming out of the program, I've definitely become more extroverted and more like excited to take on challenges and talk to people, and less afraid to make mistakes, I guess.
So great. Adriana, what would you say about what made you apply, or what you would tell students thinking about it?
Kind of like Mia. Yeah, at first I was like super on the fence. I was scared to like go and, leave my friends and family behind and school. And so I originally applied for my freshman year, for the summer of my freshman year, but that got canceled because of COVID, and same thing happened my sophomore year. So I decided SYA wasn't a really big at my school, and I'm trying to like develop and encourage more students to go now. So I heard about it like through online, through social media, and some of my sister's friends who had gone, like different connections. And it was really like my parents who pushed me to apply in the beginning, because I was like, oh, if I can't go in the summer, then there's no way I'm going full year. Like, I was really scared. But I decided to apply because I felt that my high school years here, like, it's all kind of like the same. Like, I really wanted to change in kind of like my routine, because everything that had been happening with COVID, and it just felt like the right moment for me to go. So for all the students who are thinking about applying, I would just apply and see what happens, because there's no bad thing about applying. And once I really like decided, I was so excited to, like, as Mia said, I kind of wasn't thinking of what I would leave behind, more like what was I going to like get into, who was going to welcome me, like this whole city, and discovering like it's definitely beneficial to go. And like I feel for myself, the pros outweigh the cons.
Totally. And I think you both kind of echoed each other on that. All of our students are nervous. I think some students sitting in the audience right now may be thinking, oh, I'm really nervous. Does that mean I'm ready to go? Doesn't hurt to apply. It's a great application process, even just to practice. But also all of our students come in together nervous and doubting themselves in the language, and also excited to be part of community, a community that's kind of in the same boat, and that you'll get through together. And we find that often our student body bonds really, really quickly, because it's such a unique challenge to be a part of. And you're really putting yourself out there, and you're taking a leap, but you're doing it with your classmates and teachers alongside to support you. So it's definitely a calculated risk that most all of our students say they're so glad they took. So no worries if you are a little nervous at home. We have a couple of questions here that people submitted before, so we will get to those. I have a question here about, can I attend Italy if I speak a lot of Italian? Is it immersive enough if I already have had 2 years of Italian? And I've actually gotten this on a couple school visits I've done. Students that have taken Italian for 2 years, let's say, how do you think they would feel going in with some students who haven't taken Italian before?
So some of the students, for example, two of my best friends, when I had gone to Italy, spoke fluent Italian. They spoke Italian at home with their parents. Their parents were from Italy. Their grandparents still lived in Italy. And I think that just made them so for using my two friends as an example, they didn't learn it in school. They learned it at home, and their grammar was their problem. They couldn't read or they couldn't write. And it was really a time for them to just focus on maybe communication for them wasn't the biggest thing that they want to come in and improve on. It was reading and writing, and it was going above and beyond in learning local dialect or learning dialect of the South or of the North or of Central Italy. I think it just kind of depends on what you specifically want to get out of your language requirements, because you can never go in knowing too much. You're always going to learn something. But I think that not knowing enough, because like you said before, Italy is the school that you don't have to have, like, for instance, being 2 years of requirement. I think that then again, there is also a bunch of people who come in not knowing anything. For example, I went in and didn't know anything. And I think that you'll find people that are there to help you, and you'll find kind of your group and people that are there to help you. I just think it's helpful to go into the program and kind of know what you want to get out of it. What do you want to improve in?
Mm-hmm. I've definitely heard that echoed on our Spain campus from our heritage speakers or people who are already fluent. And they say it's still so powerful to live with a host family from a different culture, be in a new city, get to know a European city really well, connect with people that weren't in my school, all these things that you couldn't get at your home school, even though you're speaking, around folks who may be fluent in the language. It's still a challenge in other ways. Culturally, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to live with a new family, to live independently for the first time often. And we still see a ton of growth from the folks that have studied the language before, or are advanced language learners, or sometimes even heritage speakers. So thank you for helping me with that one, Mia. Some of the questions were about our courses and the rigor. So I'm going to put our course catalog into the chat bar, because every campus is a little bit different. But as I mentioned before, all of our, let's see if that worked. Sarah, I don't know if that worked. If you could help me out with that one, that'd be great. But I can also share it afterwards. But our course catalog is on our academics page of our website, and you can see the electives and the different offerings at each campus. Again, we're honors and AP level. So we're still a rigorous school, fully accredited high school, so students can still stay on track for graduation. We have a question about vacations and longer breaks. So our school calendars can also be found on our website. Often we encourage families who are able to visit over one of the longer breaks. Usually that's over winter time. Sometimes that can be over spring break for spring semester students as well. But we do encourage families to come visit to see students. I don't know if either of you had family members come and visit you while you were at SYA. Mia, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, so my mother actually came. She came in February for the first time. I think I'm the oldest kid, and she was a little bit nervous. So I think she wanted to come and just visit. So she came for I guess in the States, it was Martin Luther King weekend, so she had off. So she came for a week with some of her friends from home. And then I just went to Rome with her for the weekend. And then also during my spring break, my whole family came and we celebrated Easter in Rome, which was pretty cool.
My family also came. So my family came in the spring. And yeah, we went to Paris. Yeah, I was in Paris for the school trip that we had done just the week before. So we do like a school trip, and then like you have a break so your family can come visit you, or you can travel, like Maggie said. It was great. Like we went to different museums. So like with the school, I forgot to say this before, but when we do go to the places like Paris, they try to take us to museums that we wouldn't usually go to. So I went to like a musée d'Agriculture and like different art ones that aren't as popular. And then when with my family came, I went to the Louvre, but it was still very open to us because we do still have time during the trips to go to museums or go to different parts. And then my aunt and cousin came also it was like a weekend for them. I didn't have off, but we went to the Normandy beaches and the American Cemetery, and that was really cool. And then I later went with the school, so you get to experience that, which is really, really like, it's really interesting, and like you definitely feel connected like as an American. So yeah, this.
Great, and I'm gonna throw it back to you, Adriana, about a correction here. What are the protocols if you don't click with your host family that you were assigned with at the start?
Okay, so I switched in after like 2 months. So the protocols are that at first, don't come in with a closed mind of like, oh, I can switch. Really try to make it work with your family. And the host family coordinator is always there, especially in the beginning, because they've done this before. Like, you're not alone. These other students are also going through the same process. And if you really feel like you're not adapting well or they're not adapting well to you, you can either at first when I had my meeting with the course coordinator, she asked me if there was any problem that she could try to fix and communicate with the family. But then it got to a point where I just felt more comfortable switching. So that was an easy process because I definitely felt like I had a voice and I was encouraged by the SY community. So yeah, I would say that come in with an open mind, and the survey that Maggie talked about the families, be specific if you want. Like, if this is what I really want, like you're spending either a semester or a year, so make sure it's what you really want. Sometimes you don't get your first choice, but like sometimes it can be something like incredible. Like I know multiple people that kind of wanted to host siblings, but only got like a single mother or kids who didn't live at home. But then they built such a strong connection that they definitely wish I definitely would have picked this from the start if I knew. And always have an open mind.
Yes, and like any program, we do our best to pair our students with our host families, and we always have families who are ready to go if anything comes up that we can't solve or it's not a communication barrier between the student and the family. We do allow the students to switch. So it's not super common on our campuses, but it is an option if there's something that we can't work through with the student and the family. And again, our process for accepting host families is very thorough, and you can only become a SYA host family if you're personally referred by an existing host family. So it's a pretty tight-knit community we have. Often host families get together and do things together. So we are very proud of that network, and we can always work with the student when we need to. And then this final question we have from before is, if you've already done a semester abroad, can you still apply? If you are going into 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, you absolutely can. It would just be on you. We have another question about course and graduation requirements. So it is on you and your family to meet with your advisor at school or registrar to make sure you're on track with your graduation requirements, because every school is a little bit different. And so you have our course catalog in the chat, but it would just be about you meeting with your school to make sure you are on track, and you'd be on track after 2 semesters abroad. But we absolutely would encourage you from this end to consider SYA. Again, I want to mention our awesome social media platforms. We are on Instagram and TikTok. I will also put my email into the chat if any of you have questions after this webinar. And I do, before we close, just want to say a huge thank you to Mia and Adriana. You are representing SYA so well, and I hope that the folks at home are just as grateful as I am for your participation this Thursday evening. Thank you all for joining this session. And please reach out if you have any questions, you or your family. And we hope to see you all soon, see your application soon. So thank you all for joining and have a great night.